Kayla's here along with our eight kids, and it's a blast. I have the greatest kids in the world in my house, so it's an honor. I love my kids. So I get to talk about them a little bit and what we do at Cookson Hills. So first of all, I just want to say thanks. Some of you guys, how many of you are familiar with Cookson Hills at all? Like you've heard of it? Okay, so quite a few of you. I just want to tell you, as long as they've been keeping electronic records at Cookson Hills, like you guys as a church congregation have been extremely generous. And so I'm here today really to say thank you. Because not only your prayers, your financial support, visiting out there, I know some of you guys have probably been out and seen what we're doing, is a huge blessing as a congregation. And also on top of that, like, a lot of churches get behind what Cookson Hills is doing, what God's doing out there, but a lot of you guys, even as individuals, have went above and beyond and supported Cookson in many ways. So please know from my heart and everyone at Cookson Hills, we are extremely grateful for what you guys do and allow us to get to do. I get to do the fun part, and maybe you're like, no, we get to do the fun part. But I love what I get to do, what God has called me to do out there. So I have 15 to 20 minutes. I'm a preacher at heart, so I'll try really hard to honor that because I know you guys will be hungry. But I do want to share just a helicopter view of what Cookson Hills is all about and what God has asked us to do, that we're trying to serve the children there at Cookson Hills. So, and I think the pastor mentioned that we might have a time of questions at the end. So if you guys think of anything that you want to know, or even at lunch today, feel free to talk to us, my wife or the kids or anyone. We love sharing about what we get to do. So the first picture that we have up here is a map of Oklahoma, kind of. And it's just a little location dot showing you where we're at. We're actually not that far from here. It took us about 50 minutes to get here. And we're from a small town called Little Kansas. Cookson Hills sits on 1,000 acres in the Cookson Hills, and so we have a lot of horses, a lot of pasture area. It's been around for 60 years, and so we have a long tradition. It started out with one house and 4 people on staff, and now there are more than 12 houses on the campus, and so we're able to serve more than 90 kids at a time. We have teachers that live on campus. All of the staff, so the leadership, the director, the teachers, the people that do the lawn care, the people that work. We have our own grocery store, and so that's where we go and get food every week, and a lot of that is donated or we purchase it, but we have our own little grocery store. The people that run the grocery store live there. We have a gas station there, a school on campus, a lot of those things that you'll get to see in some of these pictures. But we have been around since 1957. As you'll see on the next slide, this slide, with one of our students. We've been around since 1957, working with kids, helping them get an education and an opportunity to heal just from some of the hurts that maybe they've experienced in their life. So this coming year is a big one for us. So we celebrate 60 years of doing God's work in the lives of these kids out at Cookson Hills. One of our big phrases that you'll hear a lot of us say from Cookson Hills is we believe what Cookson Hills is really trying to do is provide the setting of a better story. We believe that each person, each kid, each adult that lives out there is actually a story that God is writing, that God is working through you guys, through us, through the kids to provide a story for these children. And so we view Cookson as kind of the background or the backdrop where kids can experience something better than they've ever experienced. And we believe that comes from some of our approach to ministry, but more importantly, it comes from seeing a godly family and how that should look for a kid. And so we have a holistic approach. The way that we approach therapy and the way that we work with kids at Cookson Hills, we focus on 3 things. We focus on the home, and we focus on the school, and we focus on the therapy. And so I'm going to take a minute and just go through those 3 things, just kind of explain what that means for us at Cookson Hills, because all 3 of them are extremely important. While 100% we're focused on hiring Christian house parents that believe in the Bible and Jesus as Lord, and that's a very, very, very high priority. We also believe if we don't educate the kids, if we don't help them get an education, if we don't help them work through some of the trauma that they've experienced, we do a very trauma-influenced therapy with the kids, because we don't believe that if they don't get through some of the, well, we do believe, if they don't get through some of those hurts that they've experienced, it'll be really hard for them to believe that there's a God that loves them because of some of the things that maybe they've experienced. And so when we start with the family and the home, I want to give you a picture of what the kids come from. So one of our past directors always says that there's no such thing as bad kids. We don't take bad kids. We take good kids who need a second chance, who maybe have experienced something traumatic or they've experienced something that is not very helpful for them. And so we take good kids that just need another chance to see a God that loves them and a better story for their life. And so there's two main, what we call tracks of kids that come to Cookson Hills. The biggest segment of our population of children comes on what we call a family reunification track. And what that basically means is that we're working with the family very, very closely to help those children go back home. We believe really strongly that God's original design was to bring his will on the earth through family. If you look at Abraham, Adam and Eve, and all those stories, the genealogy of those people, why it's so significant is because God wanted to use families to bring his kingdom on this earth. And so we want those kids to go back home, and we want the parents to be trained, and we want the kids to experience something different. So about 70%, and obviously that fluctuates a lot, but about 70% of the kids that come are going to be there between 9 months to 2 years. Typically 18 months is pretty standard, that they're going to come and experience a home at Cookson Hills, and then eventually they're going to go back after some training and therapy with their family, and they're going to go back with their biological family, and hopefully things are different. And that's the goal. The other 30% is what we call the family surrogation track, and this is more of a home. Cookson Hills actually becomes that child's home. So there are kids that come on visits from college, or they lived at Cookson Hills a long time ago. They have their own kids, and when they go home, they go to Cookson Hills and they visit their family that they live with there because that becomes their home. So for whatever reason, it could be family being incarcerated. It can be just families giving up the rights of the child. There's a lot of different reasons why that can happen, but there are about 30% of the kids on our campus that that's going to be home. Like, I'm the father that they're going to know, and so that's an honor and a huge responsibility. But while we're still training them in home, we're still doing therapy for them and helping them with their education. Some of those parents still have contact. They'll do what they call like visits, and they'll come and see their children, but Cookson will be pretty much the home that they'll remember for the rest of their life. So like I said, this is just a funny picture that we like to put in of one of the kids on campus eating a pork tenderloin, because for him that's a big deal, because he just wants to eat like candy all the time, right? The kids are all gone. They would agree. We just need to give them like cheeseburgers and chicken nuggets all the time, and they'll be happy. But one of the things that is important is we're training them in things that are going to matter for the rest of their life. So we do training in health, nutrition, and that sort of thing, because we want them to take skills with them after Cookson Hills when they leave that they've experienced, like, maybe I shouldn't just eat mac and cheese for every single meal. There might be something else out there that might be good, like broccoli or something that has color. I had to learn that last year. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding, kind of. So, the home. That's the first piece of Cookson Hills. We believe all the kids come to experience what it means to have a home. Last year, just some stats on the home portion of what we do. Last year, there were 409 families that reached out to Cookson Hills from all over the country asking for help. So in the last fiscal year, there were 409 families that said, can you help us? We have some sort of crisis in our family, and we want our child to have a shot. Can you help us? Unfortunately, last year we were able to help 90. So you see it even on a huge campus. If you come and visit, you'll be like, wow, there's a lot of houses. That's a big school. Like, God is doing a lot here. There's a huge need. One of our children in our house that just graduated this last fall, they don't graduate in the fall, I'm sorry, spring, whenever they graduate. He was from Philadelphia. So, I mean, we have people from Oklahoma that are really close. We have some kids from Stillwell, Westville, all over, but we also get kids from California, Philadelphia, that somehow online or something they figure out, this would be a really good place for my kid. So there's a huge need, and every kid needs a home that provides love, structure, and spiritual guidance. And for most of you, that makes total sense, and you get it, and you're like, of course, they need love, they need structure, discipline, correction. But unfortunately, in a lot of American homes, they're not very loving homes. They don't see a lot of structure. They're not taught how to cooperate, how to respect authorities. They're not taught spiritual things at all. A lot of kids will go to church for the first time by being at Cookson Hills. And so we want them to experience a home. And like I mentioned, this is a picture of the best looking family on campus. My family's clapping, so that's cool. Again, just to remind you that the family part of that is the biggest thing. We are amazed at when my wife and I came to do this. We're from Indiana, and we were just amazed at the influence of the family and the importance that they put on it. And we've always believed in family, but we are amazed at how much life change we see in kids because they have a dad that loves them, right? And who's consistent. And it's funny to hear kids say stuff like, I love having you as my dad because you don't scream at me. Or like, you actually hold me accountable, right? Like when you say you're going to do something and I say I'm going to do it, you actually expect that I'm going to do it. You have a higher standard than I've ever experienced. And so it's funny because the things you think they would say, like, oh, you buy me stuff, it's not what matters. And so we just really believe in the family. Here's a picture of one of our houses. Through your generosity and the generosity of a lot of other people, we're able to build these houses here. And if you want later on, I can show you some pictures that might be a little bit more clear on my tablet. Feel free to stop by. I'll show you those. But this is just the front of one of our houses. And maybe some of you have even been out to help build them. A lot of it's done through local people that come out and help us. But we're able to provide about 4,700 square foot house that has 8 different bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. We build a storm shelter because we're in Oklahoma. You got to have one of those. And so we're able to provide kids with their own room. They have a roommate. And so the next picture, I believe, shows the floor plan. It'll be hard to see. The biggest thing I want you to see about the way we build houses is they're very intentional to provide opportunities to be a family. They're very open concept. And so the kitchen, the living room, the dining room is all like one huge area. And then there's 2 hallways. One's a boys' hallway where our boys sleep, and then one's a girls' hallway for our daughters. And then we have what we call the house parents hall, and that's where my wife and I have a bedroom. Some families use the other room for like an office. We have an infant, so a 3-year-old, not an infant, but so she has her own room back there right now until she gets older. So it's kind of designed so that 95% of our time we're all together. So we're having meals together. We have a table that seats 12 people. So we're having meals together, which in America is very uncommon. But we eat together. We play games together. We watch movies together because we want them to experience that sort of thing. This is just a picture of a kitchen table. I don't know why they put this on there, but maybe because they think I like to talk about food. But this is one of the houses. This is kind of give you an idea of what the dining room looks like. It's just a big table with some benches and chairs so that we're able to all sit together and share a meal together. This is a girl, Marissa, who actually just graduated this year. Really cool girl, really awesome story of how God's used her. And this is a quote that we love to share just because it shows you what these kids get to experience at Cookson Hills. She says, I feel like I belong for the first time in my life. I have friends, I have a new family members, and I have a place that I can call home. It may sound simple to you, but for a lot of these kids, to be able to say that they have a home is a huge deal. A lot of them have been through multiple homes, multiple scenarios where they've lived and they move all the time. So for them to have a stable place in their own bedroom that they can decorate with what they like is a huge deal, and that makes them feel safe. It helps build trust with them. And then when we talk about Jesus, then they're willing to listen because they have a family that cares about them. Moving on to the school portion of what we do, this will give you an idea. Some things. Obviously, most of the kids that come, because of the trauma they've been through, are behind in school. And so for us, school is a big priority. We want them to graduate. We want them to finish school. 20% of the kids that come to Cookson will end up on our honor roll. And so this just shows you kind of what God's done to bless us. We have teachers that have doctorates. It makes no sense. It really doesn't. You just have to go, okay, God's up to something, because we have people who have literally earned doctorate degrees. They're incredible administrators, and they just say, you know what, I'm going to totally give up everything and go serve kids that need it. And so it's awesome because we get to see a lot of kids that have never been on honor roll experience honor roll. This number is awesome. 1.7 years is our average grade recovery. What that means is a lot of kids come behind in school. So you might have a kid who's a freshman, but he should be a junior. because he hasn't went to school for 2 years, or he's failed every class for a couple years. And so we have kids, because we went to year-round schooling in 2010, so we do term schooling, which means we go 6 weeks and then 2 weeks off all year long. And then in the summer, our summer is only 5 weeks. And what that allows us to do is during those 2-week breaks that we have, every 6 weeks, we're able to provide extra classes and tutoring and ways for them to like accelerate and make up some of their classes. So we just had a girl graduate from high school in 3 years because that's all the time she had. Because at Cookson Hills, when you're 18, you become an adult, you have to leave legally. We can't have you there anymore. And so when a kid comes and they're behind their freshman year, we tell them, it's possible. Kids do it. You're going to have to work hard. But you can make up 1.7 grades per year. And so that's an awesome number for us to celebrate, because kids that maybe wouldn't be able to finish in a public school, they'd have to get their GED, which is great. For a lot of kids, that's a great thing. But some kids need an extra push and want to go to college. We're able to provide that for them. So every child needs an education that can prepare them. Not all of our kids go to college. Some of them don't, and that's okay. And they know that, but some kids want to go, and so we're able to provide them some of those pre-college, preparatory type things where they can experience applying for college, visiting colleges. What does that look like to go to college? What does that mean? For a lot of kids, some of their parents never graduated high school. Some of them never graduated from college. So they're able to see that there are possibilities out there of things that they can do that maybe their family has never even experienced. Here's a picture of our school. It's roughly a 20,000 square foot school. It's a big school. I do know this, that you guys had a huge role in this thing getting done. And so again, thank you. And if you've never seen it and you have an extra couple hours, you need to come out and see it, because what you guys helped us do out there is unbelievable. The technology that they were able to put in there to help kids, and the actual building itself is amazing. So that's the school. They do grades 1 through 12. So if we happen to get a kindergarten child, we would take them to the local kindergarten, and then in first grade they would come to Cookson Hills, and they can stay there till 12th grade. So here's a picture of some kids doing a science experiment. They like to set stuff on fire and all that. Part of school that's important to us is we want them to have normal opportunities, just like you would have in a school. We have a basketball team and a volleyball team, and so we have kids that have never got to play basketball, they've never tried, and they're able to set goals in school to maintain grades and then be able to play on their basketball team or the volleyball team. And it's super fun to watch kids try something that maybe they've never got to do. So that's the home and the school. The final part of what we do, I'm sorry, I move a lot, I apologize. The final thing that we do is therapy, and this is obviously a really, really important one. That we use equine therapy, and some of you may be familiar with that, but basically we use horses because we believe that horses help heal kids, and it helps kids become better. That's one of the biggest things that we use for therapy with the families and with the children. We do family counseling sessions on the horses. They do activities with the horses. One of the things that we say about Cookson Hills all the time, and maybe some of you experience this, is that horses do not lie, right? They mirror us. And I've learned that coming from Indiana. I've never been on a horse, and I was able to get a green license so that I can ride horses and see some of what our kids get to do, and they don't. Like when I'm frustrated, my horse becomes frustrated, and I see myself in the behavior of the horse. And so one of my favorite stories that I tell people is one of our children one time was going to get their green horse license, and so we were taking this class together, and I was in the class with him, and he was riding around on the horse, probably hitting it a little bit harder than he should have. He was super frustrated, and then he's yelling, and we're in the middle of this arena, and he's yelling, "Why won't this horse do what I want him to do?" And I'm like dying laughing, because I'm thinking, like, that's the conversation I have with my wife all the time. Like, why won't Alec do what I want him to do? And so it's just funny, because I got to say to him, and the equine instructor was able to say, like, why do you think the horse is being so irritated with you? And he was able to think about, like, and he actually got there on his own and was like, yeah, maybe I should be more respectful to the horse. He might be more respectful to me. Like, yeah, that's kind of how life works. But that is one reason why we are so influenced by our equine program, because it is very effective. Last year we did over 1,700 counseling sessions individually. A lot of that is because kids will go weekly, some bi-weekly, and then we also do the parents counseling on weekends with them. So we do a lot of counseling with the kids, and we have train counselors that do that. The last fiscal year, we were able to reunite 33 kids with their families. That right there, that's my heart, and I think that's God's heart, is redeeming people. Amen? That's what God does. God takes broken families, broken people, and he puts them back together. And so that number to me is the greatest number that I can tell you about, is that 33 kids went back home. And I can't guarantee that it's going to be great, I can't. But I can tell you that they got to see a godly family for a while, and their parents got to see their kids experience that and got to see a difference in their children. And so I hope that God will continue to restore all those families as they've been reunited. Here's some pictures of kind of our equine program, some kids riding horses. It's kind of fun. I never thought I would like riding horses, but I love it. It's awesome. I sometimes feel a little bit like a cowboy. I never wore boots till I moved here. I've done a lot of things since I came from Indiana, from the big city. So here's a picture of a girl that is no longer at Cookson Hills, but had a pretty successful time there. It says, our team works tirelessly to give children the best chance to live a mature life. We exhaust every option to give them the best opportunity possible. It's not foolproof. It's really, really hard, but it's worth it. And that's what I'll tell you about Cookson Hills, is your support and what we're doing out there is really hard, but it's worth it. We're giving kids a chance that maybe they wouldn't get anywhere else. And it doesn't always work out the way we would like for it to work, but that's the part where we have to trust God, and we just have to be faithful to what he asks us to do. Why support? You guys probably get a lot of that already because you have been supporting, but I would tell you that without resources in any ministry, that being the church, I was just being told, and they were sharing with me about the things that you guys dresses were sending to India and that sort of thing. People need resources to be effective, and so you guys are able to provide dresses to some girls in India, and that's incredible, because without those resources, if someone doesn't have clothing, they're not going to be really open to the gospel. They need to be having their needs met, and so we need support. We're about done. We have 3 more houses that need to be finished at Cookson Hills, and then we'll have 12 brand new houses, so that'll allow us to have about 30 more kids on our campus, which will be awesome. And so we're just praying for growth. A couple ways that you can connect with us. If you're internet people and you like Facebook, we do have a presence on Facebook and Twitter as well. I would encourage you guys, if you're ever out there or have a reason to be out there and you just want to come check it out, give us a call and just say, hey, we want to come and see what you do. We have a dining hall that you could eat at and enjoy a meal with some of the families. We would be glad to host you and show you around so you can see kind of like what a day looks like out there. It's awesome for kids to come and see it too. Just to see like what some of these kids get to experience is really, really cool. I just want to wrap this up, but I do want you to know how thankful I am. One of my favorite stories, and I have to say this because I'm a pastor, I have to use the Bible, it's just me. But in Exodus 17, if you've ever read that chapter, maybe you're familiar with when the Amalekites come to surprise the Israelites and fight them. Moses gets Joshua, and it's our first reference to Joshua in Scripture, and he tells him to go get some guys together to fight. And what's interesting is that Moses doesn't go fight with them. Moses says, I'm going to take Aaron and Hur, we're going to go up on this mountain, and we're going to support you. But we believe in you. And so he sends Joshua out to fight this battle. But what's awesome about this story in Exodus 17 is that Moses takes the rod, the staff of God with him, which is symbolic of faith and power. And he goes up on this mountain. And as he holds up the staff of God, which is a reminder of what God had led them through, he just fed them for 40 years with manna and just turned a stone into rock into water. So God has been providing for these people. And every time Moses would hold up the staff of God, the Israeli army would win. And I just have this funny picture of like Moses holding it up and they're all winning and all these guys are dropping. And then when he gets tired and his hand gets tired and he can't hold it up anymore, he lowers his staff and they start losing. Like the Bible says, whenever the staff is lowered, that Israel starts losing the battle and start losing ground to the Amalekites. And so Aaron and Hur get this great idea. They sit Moses down on this rock and they say, all right, we're going to hold your hands up for you. That way your hands are always held up. Even when you're tired, we'll hold them up, and that way we'll win. And that's what happens. Aaron and Hur help Moses by holding his hands up, and they're able to see God's provision and power in victory over the Amalekites. And what I love is that Moses then builds this altar to God, who he calls Jehovah Nissi, because it means the Lord is my banner. And I love being in churches and seeing banners and flags. because that's what Moses did, is he put up an altar and he said, the Lord is my flag, right? Jesus, God is my power, God is my presence. We have to hold each other's hands up, like the church. We've got to hold each other's hands up, and that's what you guys are doing. You guys are surrounding Cookson Hills, and when my wife and I get tired and we're crying because one of our kids is cussing us out or they're mad at us, and we're like, God, why are we doing this? We remember this church. Like, we remember your faithfulness in prayer for us, and we go, it's all right, they've got our hands. We can do this, right? Because God is our banner. God, his presence and his power is what's going to change these kids, not anything that I can do. And so thank you for being a church that's faithful and holding up hands in India and holding up hands in Little Kansas, Oklahoma. I am so grateful to be a part of this church and to be here and tell you thank you for what you guys are doing to help Cookson Hills and what God is doing there. So I would love to just pray a prayer of thanks real quick to the Lord on behalf of Cookson Hills for what you guys are doing all over the world. God, thank you for this church. This is your church, and God, it is evident that you are their banner, that for years this church has been holding up warriors' hands. They've been holding up your banner and proclaiming your name in Stillwell and all over the world. And so, God, I do just say thank you, and I pray that you would continue to give them a spirit of perseverance, patience, of grace, that God, when they're tired, that they would know that there are people holding their hands up, and that it's going to be your presence and your power that will get them through the times when they're weary, when they need an extra push, God. We thank you that you give us the strength to run even when we're too tired. And so thank you for this church, Lord, and I pray that you continue to bless them, that they would see lives change for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Won't you just stay up here, Ryan? Does anybody, some of you are new, I know, and probably never heard of Cookson Hills. Do any of you have any questions? Many of you have been there for years or know of it. Anybody got any questions you'd like to ask Ryan? You're hungry, aren't you? Who's got it? Okay.
Yeah, my wife and I moved last June, so this is our beginning of our second year there for us. So.
If there's a friend of mine's kid is in foster care right now, is it possible for him to go there? Would it help him get back to his mother faster?
We do. There are some situations where the court will recommend it. It's definitely always an option, but without knowing all the legalities of it, I can't really tell you. But it's definitely worth looking into. Okay. Mentioning it to the, I don't know if they have a case officer or whatever.
Well, it's a friend of mine, but
yeah,
that sounds promising.
Yeah, I would look into it for sure.
Thank you.
Is there a waiting list to get in for the students, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's the short answer. Right now, there's a few. We have two. Actually have a daughter coming on Tuesday, and then we have one more spot for children. We can take 10 children in our house. So they're sifting through all of the past referrals and applicants, and then they're gonna pick the best two that fit with what we can help. So yeah, that 409 families, we helped 90. So that means we turned away 300. And some of them we can't help because they need higher levels of therapy. We don't do highly abused, traumatic. Does that make sense? We're taking lower trauma and trying to help them get back with their families. Some of it has to be done through other facilities.
So they don't have to stay till they're a senior? They
No.
go whenever they're ready or whenever they're back to...
Yeah, we create what's called a plan of care. They have goals that they're trying to meet. Some of them, their goal is to graduate, so they'll stay till that happens. Some of them, their goal is to be less angry. Just simple things. So once they accomplish that goal and they've learned how to manage their anger, and then they go on these practice visits, they'll actually get to go home every once in a while with their family to practice living with them again. So they might go for a weekend and then come back home, to our home, and then we'll work with the family, how'd that go? And they're it was not good. And then okay, and we keep talking through it with them. And so once they kind of work on that goal and we feel like the parents are happy with it, then then they make that transition. But not all the transitions are super good either. I mean, a parent at any point can just say, I don't want my kid there anymore, and we don't have that right to keep them there. So a lot of kids they'll just call one day and say, I miss my kid, I'm taking him out. You're like, okay. So yeah, it's very unique because it's not institutionalized at all. We don't actually have the rights. We just have like permission to handle their day-to-day stuff. So.
I might say if you haven't been up there, especially the new campus, you ought to go. Candy, my daughter, who's a counselor up in St. Louis schools, she was down about 6 months ago, I guess, and we went up because she'd spent 2 summers there when she was in Bible college. One was to help the game program so on through the summer, and the next one was to try to get kids up to par in school. And she made the statement, we went through all the school and all, she couldn't believe it and all, because that was like 20 years ago. And she went through all the school, and she told me as we was driving away, she said, Daddy, you know, if something would happen and all, you know where I'd be? I'd be right here. And I think she would, because she got a heart for that, and a heart for kids, and boy, you just can't beat that. You got a heart for kids, it's going to work. I want to say this right now before we go down there, if you don't have any more questions. This is the best presentation I've ever heard from Cookson Hills. It really is. You did a super job, I mean it. I think probably we ought to have the wife stand up too, don't you?
Yeah, she's really the boss.
Oh, I figured that. But young couples like this taking over, it's not easy. I've been involved with Cookson Hills for 50 years. In fact, Mr. Dillon, who started it and gave the land and so on, I went to school with his boy, so I know a little bit about it and so on. Doing a tremendous work for a number of years, 60 now, and just keeps going on. And children need discipline. They need Christ-like example, and I'm thankful for people like this who are doing it. Anybody got any other questions before we have prayer and we go down to eat? And if you do, you can see him, and they have a little display, and I think they're going to put it down on the stage down in the foyer or down in the gymnasium there, Family Center, and you can look that over. All right. Are all 8 of them here, or some of them scattered around, I suppose, in junior church and this and that? All right. You'll want to meet them and all. Nobody have anything else? Everybody hungry? Yeah, I got a response there, didn't I? All right, let's stand and we'll have benediction, and then, you know, the food prayer he doesn't change. He just stays the same around here. And we want all of you, if you're here visiting and so on, go down and have some fellowship with us, and we'll be